talked a little bit about control burning when we were up here. The guy that did the timber thing, let me start back there, is a soil scientist with the Natural Resource Conservation Service. So we've had this discussion a lot of times. He says about slash on the ground like this that these soils are not going to be sterilized by a ground fire with slash like this. A crown fire, perhaps. If you look at the fire near Fort Robbins, the fire near Shatter State Park is a better example. That fire near Shatter State Park, you know, when you drive up there and you see those bluffs up there that are bare of trees, that fire, dude, 60s.
That fire what?
Way back, 1960s. It's been 50 years.
Yeah, and then there was people over in Crawford.
There's hardly a tree on there. So when you get one of these crown fires, they are sterilizing. They will sterilize soil. They're hotter. In a soil profile here, any soil profile, you start with an O horizon, organic horizon. These soils where you only have 15 to 17 inches, they are developing soils. They are good soils, but they're extremely shallow. There is very little organic horizon. That organic horizon either gets slowly leached into the A and the B, or it simply oxidizes because of lack of water. And so there's very little organic. You get a fire through here, a hot fire, when you've got all this pine needle duff, and it will burn away that, it'll destroy that organic layer, and so you're down to the A horizon. Now, an A horizon isn't bad, it's still fairly decent soil, but you're talking 500,000 to a million years to develop an inch of soil in these kinds of soils. So, have a fire and wait a while.
Well, you can't make a generalization, but I will.
Okay.
A lot of the fires that I have, as a lay observer, not a firefighter or anything, I've seen where, yeah, there were spots that were sterilized.
Yes.
And maybe 15 or 20 feet around where a tree was lying down.
Right.
And around it, it's been a cool fire. Those soils can get mixed.
Yes.
And then come back in a couple of years where that soil was sterilized, there's been wind blowing in some soil. Here's a little flower popping up.
Yeah.
Where it started out.
And Dick makes a very good point. It depends on what your long-term goal and objective is here. If you're looking for biodiversity, in fact, those little spots of sterilized soil aren't bad, because you're going to start back with a fresh start in ecology. If any of you have studied ecology, you start from rock to lichens to building up to soil. And so with each of those kinds of soil, you're going to have different plant associations on those little spots. So the more of those little spots you can have, the better biodiversity there is. So Dick is exactly right. The problem with the crown fire is that when you get that kind of fire, it is extremely hot, because you're not just burning the tops. The tops are burning, but then the whole tree falls down, and then you've got a lot of killed spots. But when you get stuff like this, that fire is going to go through there pretty fast. It's not going to have it might have a little effect on the organic layer, but not very much. It's in fact probably going to remove that pine needle duff and probably expose a little more soil that this grass can then start thickening up in between. So that's why we would like to do control burns, as we talked about up here, that would be very cool fires compared to a hot crown fire.
Well, wind has quite a bit to do too.
It does.
Firefighters, of course, hate to see the wind kick up.
Right.
But that'll move it through fast to get a cool burn.
Yeah. There are, when you do,
It just sits there and burns.
yep. When you do control burns, there's three things they look for, and that's wind speed, temperature, and relative humidity. And you want a little bit of wind. You want it to move along, 5 to 10 miles an hour wind. You want temperature temperature 70 to 80 degrees. You want relative humidity about 30%. You don't want it bone dry. You don't want a lot of health, a lot of wind, and you don't want it extremely hot. Nor the reverse. You want it to be able to burn.
Now, what were the fires in Yellowstone?
Ground fires. Result of, we talked about that in the hike this morning, and the reason we're doing this is that it took us 120 years to make the mess we made. Yellowstone is the same deal. Overprotection, not letting nature take its course. This country burned. If you look at the old pictures of the early explorers, Custer's expeditions to the Black Hills, any of the old photographs, you look at even the 1930 photo, 40, 50s photographs of these hills, the pine trees are all on top of the ridges. This meadow would have no trees in it. In fact, when we did the thinning, we really talked about clear cutting this whole park. Because that's what it should have looked like. That's what it would have been natural.
Had it not burned?
Because it hasn't burned. Right. It hasn't burned. But we thought, well, for this exception, northwest winds are the rule here. We'd like to have a little protection from the northwest winds blowing through that sheep wagon. So we left a few extras. We said, well, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, in Yellowstone, that was the one that hit the press. But look at all the fires since then. I mean, Yellowstone is tiny compared to what's happened in the National Forest in years since then. Smokey Bear, damn him, was a bad deal. We put out too many fires. And we had the false expectation that we could control fires, and so we built up homes and trees. And so anybody that builds homes and trees deserves to lose them. And we as taxpayers should not be rebuilding. Okay, now I'm off the stump, and I'll come back to
Even though you can call it Yellowstone, 80,000 acre crown fire, and it sterilized a lot of soil. I went back the next year, and then 3 years later. The first year, it was some of those burnt off trees.
Yeah.
Now there's lots of regrowth.
There is, except it did sterilize a lot of places. It
Well,
was
that's
hotter than it should have been. Fire needs to go through these systems because the ecology of these systems, and let's use Yellowstone as an example, where you have lodgepole pine spruce. The first tree to move in is aspen. That's an early successional stage, followed by lodgepole pine, followed then by spruce fir. Well, aspen communities are the best you can get for elk, and that's what the park's trying to promote. I'll get on the stump again. Go through the.
Kayak.
What's the river up on the north end of the park?
Come here.
Lamar Valley. Thanks, Dick. There's some explosions in the Lamar Valley.
Very well.
The science in the National Park Service sucks. They have a political agenda that they've been told that this is what they're going to promote. And their research people have lost any of their academic training, let me say. They have justified the fact that the park is extremely overpopulated by elk and bison, to the point that elk and bison have destroyed the aspen in those communities. Now the saving grace was the Yellowstone fire. It's burn it off, and so aspen is going to come back. Had that not happened, there would be, in the Lamar Valley, there is no aspen left except in those explosions. And yet you'll sit there. We've had field tours and sat there on hillsides and had the biologists from the National Park Service who now work for the biological. They moved them out of the Park Service. But anyway, sit there and tell you there's as much aspen out of that exposure as there inside.
It's not like it's cold air.
This guy is talking to PhD vegetation scientists who happen to be range managers. We know what we're looking for. And we're down there on our hands and knees, wildlife biologists and range livestock people, side by side, trying to find all this aspen outside this enclosure. doesn't exist. And then he takes us up by the north entrance there at
You can't have all this stuff on the run.
the hot springs.
Because this belt needs to come around
Man,
here.
yeah,
No
yeah.
problem.
And there's a sagebrush exclosure, same deal. And he says there's as much sagebrush outside that exclosure as inside. We've got a hell of a lot of people know a lot about sagebrush. And there was a wildlife biologist from Texas. He was standing there looking at it. He was down on his hands and knees looking at this. He had to walk away. He got back on the hillside and he was, every four-letter word you've ever heard was used to express his feelings about this guy. But there's the scientific credibility of the Park Service is just phenomenal. The fact is that the fire in Yellowstone was a good thing, but we just shouldn't have let it get that far. We need to use fire. We need to control it because we just can't. Smokey Bear is all right. You need to have some kind of control, but you've got to let fires burn, or you're going to finally get to the point that you have absolutely no control.
We're going to head up the hill, Jimbo.